the state would call Detective Hannah Haas.
All right, if you come forward, stand, please. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right. Counsel, your witness.
Thank you. Good morning, Detective. If you would, please state your name and spell that last name for the record, please.
Yes, ma'am. It is Hannah Haas, Haas.
How are you employed?
I am currently assigned to the Major Crimes Unit at the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office as a detective.
How long have you been with the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office?
Just over 3 years.
Do you have any prior law enforcement experience?
Yes, ma'am. I worked for the Bradford County Sheriff's Office for approximately 12 years prior to transferring.
And if you could scoot a little bit closer. What were your roles with the Bradford County Sheriff's Office?
I started out as a 911 dispatcher, and within that time, I became a sheriff's deputy and then worked in the criminal investigations unit for general investigations and then promoted to supervisor.
And with St. John's, how long have you been in the Major Crimes Unit?
Almost 2 years.
And so you were in that capacity in June of 2023?
Yes, ma'am.
The incident that we're here occurred June 3rd. It was a Saturday. So you working on a Saturday, or are you on call?
I'm on call.
Okay. When did your agency start to receive calls about an incident that had occurred at Chubby's restaurant in Ponte Vedra?
At approximately 4:30 p.m.
Describe what deputies encountered when they arrived on scene.
When deputies arrived on scene, they observed 4 persons injured in a grassy area between the Chubby's parking lot and A1A. They also observed multiple witnesses on scene, as well as fire rescue assisting those persons.
Okay. So some of EMS had actually gotten there first before law enforcement.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Those 4 persons that were injured, can you identify them all for the record, please?
Yes, 17-year-old Madison Schemitz, Madison's mother, Jacki Roge. We also have the bystander who stopped the incident, Kennedy Armstrong, and then we have the defendant, Spencer Pearson.
So did you get called out to this scene by patrol?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What time do you get there, and what is the scene like? What's going on when you arrive?
I got there at approximately 6 p.m., received a phone call about 5 p.m. When I arrived on scene, our victims and the defendant had already been transported to the hospitals. The scene was secured by crime scene tape, and there was witnesses standing by waiting for interviews.
All right. And at this time, Detective Haas, I'm going to display on the screen some photographs and just ask you to kind of describe what we're looking at in the vantage point of these images.
So here's Mr. Chubby's wings. It's at 150 Valley Circle in Ponte Vedra. This is the north side of the building in the parking lot. This is the same vantage point of the north side view of the parking lot.
Okay. And that highway or street that you see at the top of the photo, which road is that?
That'll be A1A.
And as we sort of move around the building, what do you note of evidentiary value in the photos?
The white Jeep and the black Tahoe are both Madison and Jacqueline's.
Okay. The white Jeep belonged to who?
Madison Schemitz.
Okay. And the black Tahoe?
Jacki Roge.
Her mother. Okay. So this is just another vantage point, kind of standing on that sidewalk. Is that on the east side?
It is on the east side of the building.
All right. And do you see another vehicle of interest in this image?
Yes, the gray Chevrolet is going to be the defendant's vehicle that he traveled there in.
Okay, the truck off to the right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what vantage point are we looking at here?
Now we're looking towards Mr. Chubby's wings. This is the grassy area on which the deputies observed our victims and defendant injured. And then we have Madison Schemitz's white Jeep and the black Tahoe that belongs to Madison's mother, Jacqueline, and Spencer Pearson's vehicle being the gray Chevrolet truck.
You were out at the scene. From the vantage point of A1A, can these vehicles be seen?
Yes.
And again, what's being depicted by the little green markers in this photo?
So we're showing the location, evidence where the blood was from our victim and the defendant in the grassy area, clothing that was used to render aid to the victims. and then additionally the knife that was used.
And where is the knife at this point in the process? What was it being marked by?
Being marked by the green placard, and it is still lying in the grassy area where Spencer was.
And I believe there's an orange cone as well marking
Yeah.
it.
Yes, sir.
This is just an up close of some of the blood evidence that was seen at that point.
Yes.
This is sort of two images of that knife that was marked, first by the cone and then second by photo marker 13. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And was that the knife that was collected in this case?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
Okay. And so you arrive on scene. Do you get obviously briefed by patrol and take a look around with other detectives?
Yes, ma'am. We completed interviews, took a look around, got with our forensics, started taking in evidence.
At some point, did you or other members of your agency obtain video surveillance from Chubby's as part of your investigation?
Yes, Detective Malka obtained the surveillance video from Mr. Chubby's wings.
Okay. Now, did Mr. Chubby's just have one camera, or did they have multiple angles and things?
There was multiple angles,
Both inside and outside?
inside and outside.
Did was a compilation video put together by your agency in like a timeline format?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
Okay. Before we show that, I'm just going to get some general things out from you about what is going to be in the video. This is a screenshot essentially of the video. What area are we looking at here?
We're looking at the dining area inside Mr. Chubby's wings. And if you look, there's Madison and her friend Chloe. They arrived first. And also at the table is Jacqueline and Chloe's mother, Casey.
Okay. Is it this table down here on the ground on the black carpet there with, I believe, 4 females you can see?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we'll get a better picture of it here in a little bit. So Madison and her friend, you've gone back and watched, the entirety of the video. Madison and her friend Chloe arrived first at Chubby's?
Yes, ma'am.
In Madison's vehicle?
Yeah, in Madison's vehicle.
And then Madison's mom and Jacqueline arrive and join them
Yes.
to eat?
Yes, ma'am.
What time does the defendant walk into Chubby's?
The defendant walks into Chubby's at approximately 3:37 p.m.
And what does he do generally while he's in there? What did your investigation show?
Well, the video will begin with Spencer, the defendant, arriving in the north part of the parking lot in the building. And he pulls in and then puts it in reverse and pulls around to the front, passing Madison and Jacqueline's vehicles. Once he's parked, he walks in at about approximately 3:37. Once he's in, he then walks over to the bar area, sits at a high top table with a view of Madison and her friends and family, then orders mozzarella sticks. After that, Spencer then goes to the restroom and then returns at 4:16.
So he returns to his table at 4:16. And then what time do Madison and her group leave the restaurant approximately?
You'll then see Madison, Chloe, and Jacqueline get up and start to leave the building at 4:29.
And then shortly thereafter, what happens?
And then the video shows the defendant leaving the table, exiting the building, and chasing down Madison and striking her multiple times.
Okay. For the record, I'm now going to play this video, and I may ask you a few questions as we start. You can see a timestamp in the top left corner on a lot of these. Is this the defendant initially pulling into the north side of the building that you referenced?
Yes, ma'am.
see a little better. Can you just describe each of the parties by the clothes they're wearing?
Yes, Chloe is wearing a gray shirt with a bag around her shoulders. Madison is in the black t-shirt and shorts on her phone in the middle next to her mother, Jacqueline, who is wearing an orange tank top, shorts. And then to the left of her is Chloe's mom, Casey, wearing a dress.
You see coming into the camera.
You'll see the defendant walking to the bar area, to the high top table, and then take a seat.
This is a different angle of the same thing.
Yes.
And this skips to a certain part where you talked about the timing of about 4:14. He's getting up and going where?
He's going to the restroom.
You see him. This is again a different angle right here. Is that when on the video it becomes obvious that the women in the restaurant, Madison and family, see him?
Yes, Madison's very surprised and immediately alerts her mother.
Approximately 4:16 is when he takes a seat there, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, I think in time, just so the record's clear, we skipped ahead about 4:26. 4:26, is that right? 16:26?
Yes, sir.
You can see at that high top, you can still see the white hat up there
Yes, sir.
of the defendant. Does anyone at this table ever go up and approach the defendant or speak to him in any way?
No, they do not.
They appear to be looking outside the front windows of the restaurant at that point, right?
Yes, sir.
leave the restaurant without interacting with him?
They do walk outside of the restaurant without interacting.
So it showed that entire, both parties leaving from that angle, and now I think we're flipping back to the, when Madison and her family leaves just from this angle, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. They're seen outside speaking to a staff member of the restaurant for a minute, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Jacqueline was explaining the situation and paying for the bill.
Karen, can I pause this until? Hold on 1 minute. I was trying to pause it because of the noise, Your Honor. I'm sorry, and I think I messed it up. Get back to. Just gonna run it here. One minute, Your Honor. Try not to make me start all over again. One minute, Your Honor. I'm going to do this a different way. I apologize. I stopped it because of the noise in the back. Just a minute. I'll keep it up. See if this will work. one person get involved first. Who is that?
That would be Kennedy Armstrong.
It's her mother.
And her mother, correct, yes, ma'am.
I believe her mother is first, and then Kennedy.
Her mother will be coming around the corner first to intervene, in which she is also injured, and then Kennedy will come across the parking lot and tackle the defendant off of Madison and her mother.
Restaurant with her mother.
Your agency began to receive many 911 calls, correct? Not just one.
No, multiple.
And it's obviously hard to see any of the parties that are down at this point, but you're aware after Kennedy Armstrong knocks him off of the two women, there's another male that gets on top of Mr. Pearson in an attempt to get the knife away.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's a different person than Kennedy Armstrong.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So obviously, evidence at the scene is collected. You're doing your investigation. What is the image that I'm displaying on the screen now? Obviously not on scene, but where is that taken?
Yes, ma'am. Our evidence took the photograph while on scene, if I believe correctly, of Spencer's knife.
Okay. All right. That was collected at that photo marker 13.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And after you spent some time on scene, did you respond to a hospital anywhere?
Yes, ma'am. I responded to the hospital where Jocelyn was taken to.
At some point in your investigation that night, I believe, did you receive some belongings that the hospital turned over from the defendant?
Yes, Detective John Newman met me at the hospital and handed me over the belongings that were taken by the defendants. Yes, I'm sorry.
Forward to the mic. Okay. And did you go through those belongings either there at the hospital or back at the sheriff's office?
Yes, ma'am. Prior to packaging the belongings, we were going to package them on scene at the hospital and then take them and put them into evidence. Prior to packaging, we located an item in his pocket.
Okay. In like a shorts pocket?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was that item?
That item was a sharpening block.
For a knife?
Yes, ma'am. It is known to use to sharpen a knife.
All right. And so Detective Haas, obviously victims are badly injured, but are you eventually able to do interviews with Ms. Roge and Ms. Schemitz?
Yes, I was able to speak with Ms. Roge for a little while that Saturday on June 3rd, and then I spoke to Madison Monday on June 5th.
Were you able to sort of get a background timeline as to who this person, the defendant, was to her and just a history of the relationship?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what did you find out as far as like how Madison knew the defendant and when when had they been together?
They had dated prior to and had a breakup in April of 2023.
Okay. And when did they begin dating?
The year before, for approximately 8 to 9 months, I believe. Less than that.
And so I believe we've got it on the screen here. They began dating in October of 2022.
Yes, ma'am.
Broke up in April of 2023.
Yes, ma'am.
Did Ms. Schemitz indicate to you that they had a cordial breakup, or at least initially?
She initially thought it was a cordial breakup, and then it did not continue to be that way.
And just generally describe what started happening between the defendant and Ms. Schemitz after she broke up with him in April.
The defendant started to what appeared to be stalk the victim. Ms. Schemitz left notes on her vehicle, was following her around, making her uncomfortable, sending text messages, creating fake social media accounts, harassing her, causing issues at school as well. One of the last things that was discussed was when the defendant created a fake TikTok account.
I'm going to get to that one in just a minute, okay? Before we get there, prior to that, are you aware of a photograph that the defendant sent her where he was either attempting to commit suicide or let her know he was going to commit suicide?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And can you describe that photo, and then what did she and her mother do in response to getting that photo?
Once they received the photo of what appeared to be the defendant trying to take his life with a tie, they immediately contacted the defendant's parents to intervene, and then they were able to do so.
So when you say like with a tie, like as in to hang himself?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. But they immediately reached out to his family, let them know that he had sent that, and they intervened?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. And then again, he, as a result of that attempted suicide, he went to the hospital. I believe he was Baker active for a few days.
Yes, ma'am. I believe it was involuntary.
Okay. Okay. And he left her alone for a short period of time, but then did it pick back up again?
Yes, ma'am. It did.
All right. Is that when sort of the fake social media account started to come into play?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And you got this history from both Madison and her mother. Were you able to review her phone later and kind of corroborate if some of those things occurred?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you able to corroborate that those things did in fact occur?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I'm going to highlight one in particular, and I'm going to change the screen up there to let you know what I'm displaying. Can you just describe first here? You received these screenshots from Madison, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What is this?
This is a fake TikTok account that is labeled as Jeffrey. However, the account belongs to Spencer Pearson.
And by fake, you just mean it's not the one that like Madison knew him to use while they were together.
Yes, ma'am.
It's another account.
Additional, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then that middle screen, what is that for the people that don't know TikTok's interface? What is he doing there?
So with TikTok, you can like and comment on videos and other comments that are posted. And here it shows that Jeffrey, our defendant, had liked comments, commented on a couple posts, and also tagged some of Madison's friends.
Okay. So before we talk about the comment where he tagged her, where you see it begin yesterday and some of the activity this, for the record, account Jeffy, Jeffy, is doing, he's actually going and finding where she's commented on other TikTok videos, and then he's interacting with her comments. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. By liking them or?
Yeah,
or
and you have to go into the actual TikTok to be able to see who commented. You have to be looking for it.
Okay. And then this one at the top that I'm going to kind of bring up to the screen, again, for those who don't know how TikTok sort of uses, what is the Jeffy account that the defendant created doing here?
So in the TikTok that is displayed to the right, he goes into a comment and tags Madison Schemitz, Ethan Bolts, and Maddie, her friend, and an additional person, and states, "Y'all gonna get yours."
Do you know what date this was sent to Madison on TikTok?
No, ma'am, I don't. Correction, I apologize. That was sent to her on Monday, May 29th, 2023.
Okay. So just a few days prior to stabbing at Chubby.
Yes, ma'am.
And we talked about some of the evidence you were able to see in Madison's phone. Did your agency seize and attempt to search the defendant's phone for any evidence?
Yes, ma'am.
And was that successful?
We were able to get a partial download, but not a full download. Digital forensics wasn't able to get a full download due to not having the passcode, and still today they hadn't been able to get a full download of the phone.
Okay, so limited data, if anything, unless you have the password,
Yes,
or
ma'am.
can crack through that password forensically.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And that hasn't been successful to date?
No, ma'am.
Okay. No further questions for this witness?
Cross-examination.
Good morning, Detective Haas.
Good morning, sir.
When you began your testimony, we're talking about the 4 people injured at the scene when you were being dispatched there to what I'm just going to refer to as Mr. Chubby's as opposed to the address. Are
Yes.
you tracking me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you'd mentioned there was 17-year-old Madison Schemitz.
Yes, sir.
How old was Spencer Pearson?
At the time, 18 years old.
And do you know how far removed from his 18th birthday he was?
No, sir.
Okay. Fair enough. Did you prepare the arrest warrant affidavit?
No, sir, I did not.
Okay. Did you ever come to learn he was born in August?
Through the investigation, I did, yes, sir.
Okay, and this was June 3rd,
Yes, sir.
so roughly 9 months removed from his 18th birthday.
Yes, sir.
When we watched the video, and let me back up. In your role as lead detective, you're kind of supervising or aware of the overall investigation, even though you may not perform every function. People are keeping you abreast as to what happens because you're the lead detective, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. For events like this today where you may have to testify about a case you worked.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, when we watched that video, when Mr. Pearson came in to park the truck and then relocates it to the, I think you said the east side of Mr. Chubby's?
Yes, sir.
To the south of that area where he parked, to the south end of the business, there's no escape, is there?
No, sir.
Okay. So Mr. Pearson relocated his vehicle from a spot that would have been easier to exit had he wanted to do so than where he ultimately parked the car.
Yes, sir.
And we saw pictures of blood evidence there. This scene was rather gory, was it not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. 4 people had been stabbed or cut.
Yes.
Are you able to tell whose blood is who arriving at 6 o'clock?
Not at the time, no, sir. Not without seeing them in place.
Okay, so the blood that we saw, it could have been Madison? Could have been, is that a guess?
Yes, sir.
Miss Roge,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Armstrong,
Yes.
or Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
We don't know.
No, sir.
Because it's true by virtue of the dispatch that Mr. Pearson was injured.
Yes, he was.
Did you have an understanding how that injury took place?
Yes, sir.
And I'm
Was-
specifically referring to Mr. Pearson.
Yes. For Mr. Pearson, it was self-inflicted, and even on some of the 911 phone calls, they had stated that he was actively cutting his neck.
And in the investigative reports of which you're familiar,
Yes, sir.
witnesses described it as Mr. Pearson slowly and a number of times slicing his throat, correct?
Yes, sir.
Were you aware of the nature of the injuries he ultimately suffered?
No, sir, not at the time.
Subsequently, were you able to learn the nature of his injuries?
Not to the extent, but vaguely. Knowing that he wasn't able to speak directly after the incident.
Okay. And you were made aware that the cut to his throat impaired his ability to speak?
Yes, sir.
Do you have knowledge of whether it lacerated his trachea?
I believe it did, but I'm not sure without looking at a report.
Fair enough.
Yes, sir.
When you responded to, was it Memorial Hospital where Miss Schemitz was?
Yes, sir.
And Miss Rogé was there?
Yes, she was.
And you conducted a sworn interview of Miss Rogé, did you not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And in that interview, prior to certainly this incident, but even before the breakup between Madison and Mr. Pearson, was it your understanding that Miss Rogé and the Pearson family generally tended to get along?
Yes, yes, sir.
And indeed, before the relationship ended, Miss Rogé described Mr. Pearson to you before the breakup and the wind down of the relationship.
Yes, sir.
She described to you, and I quote, "And he was a fantastic kid, very polite, great family, picked her up for church on Sundays. He is an introvert, she is not." That's what Miss Rogé told you about Mr. Pearson, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, when we were viewing the video surveillance, I want to focus for a moment on the interior surveillance of Mr. Chubby's.
Yes, sir.
You had described Mr. Pearson taking a seat at that high top table in the establishment, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, I don't know how well it got captured on that video, but just to round it out in testimony, when you enter the restaurant, there was the table to the left where Madison, Miss Rogé, and their friends were seated, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then you have to walk up a little bit of steps, I think it's 3 to be exact, to get to the elevated bar area that has bar stools around the bar and high tops located around it as well.
Yes, sir.
And you said that Mr. Pearson took a seat in view of where the ladies were sitting.
He took a seat at a high top table that was in view. Yes, sir.
Okay. Have you ever been to the restaurant?
No, sir. Not outside.
You've never sat at that table?
No, sir. I did not.
In watching the video, you would agree with me that there's not only the wall that is a barricade from the upper bar area, but there's even a little bit of a covered glass partition above that wall.
Yes, sir. Based on the video.
Okay. And the video is captured from the ceiling in the corner,
Yes, sir.
kind of a bird's eye view of the establishment.
Yes, sir.
But you've never been in and inspected the scene in the interior from the corner where he was sitting behind the wall and behind the divider to determine whether he could see these ladies when he was seated at the high top.
No. No, sir. I did not.
Okay. And so as we sit here today, you really don't know whether he had eye shot while he was seated at that position in the corner behind the dividers or not.
No, sir. Not without sitting in this position.
And you never did that.
No, sir.
When Mr. Pearson got up to use the bathroom now, he would have been walking in an area, presumably had he looked where he could have seen them.
Yes, sir.
In the video, do you see him looking towards the table when he's walking to the restroom?
Yeah, I don't recall.
When he returns from the restroom, Mr. Pearson that is, he goes around the backside of the bar, correct?
Yes, sir. I believe so.
On the far western end of the interior of the restaurant.
Yes, sir.
And he couldn't have seen the table from that vantage point, correct?
I'm not sure without being inside.
Fair enough. And then, indeed, when he did return to the seat from the restroom and sat down, Ms. Dunn stated you could see the hat of the defendant, the top of it.
Yes, sir.
Because even from that bird's eye view in the corner, you couldn't see his face sitting at the high top. You could only see his hat, correct?
Yes, sir.
And in addition to the divider, later in that video, we see a bunch of tall trophies that look like kids winning championships or something, stacked up behind the hostess stand, kind of in the line of sight, if you will, behind the divider, correct? Trophies?
Yes, sir. They're there.
And then tragically, we watch these ladies and Mr. Armstrong get injured.
Yes, sir.
Now, when you're assigned the case, and in the modern era generally, Isn't it true that law enforcement would like to get access to people's cell phones?
Yes,
It
sir.
contains a lot of data,
Yes, sir.
a lot of communication.
Yes, sir.
It's a good source of an investigative tool for a lady such as yourself.
Yes, sir.
So undoubtedly, when you're on the scene collecting the property, we've heard about the sharpening stuff.
Yes, sir.
You're looking for Mr. Pearson's cell phone.
Yes, sir.
Did you find it at the scene?
It was not at the scene.
Okay. And the scene, and I'm using that term broadly, Mr. Chubby's, the parking lot, the grass, the sidewalk, anywhere in that area, you did not recover a cell phone from Mr. Pearson.
No, sir, we did not.
Okay. Now, Mr. Pearson, after he parked the car, as we saw in the video, he never returned to that vehicle, did he? His truck.
No, sir.
Okay. That vehicle never left the parking lot until it was seized and taken into custody by your agency, the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office.
Yes, sir.
There was a search warrant obtained for Mr. Pearson's truck.
Yes, sir.
And I don't recall, were you party to the execution of that warrant?
Yes, sir, for the vehicle.
Okay. But when the vehicle was searched, once again, you're probably on the lookout for a cell phone, are you not?
Yes.
Okay. When you searched the vehicle for a cell phone, did you find one?
No, sir.
Okay. And Mr. Pearson, when he was transported from the scene, are you aware how he was transported?
I was not.
Okay. You weren't made aware that he was life flighted to...
I was made aware that Madison was. I was not at the time made aware that Spencer was.
Okay. Were you ultimately made aware that he was life flighted to UF Shands Hospital?
Yes, sir, I am now.
Okay. So as we sit here today, you are aware that due to the nature of his injuries, he required life flight transportation as well.
Yes, sir.
And just to round that out, when we're talking about life flight, that means a helicopter. He's not in the back of an ambulance. They get him airborne, just as they did Ms. Schemitz, because of the critical nature of their injuries.
Yes, sir.
There was a concern both of those young people were going to die, was there not?
Yes, sir.
The nature of both their injuries was such that there was a serious concern that one or both of them may die.
Yes, sir.
Madison, from the injury she sustained at the hands of Mr. Pearson stabbing her, I believe it was approximately 17 times. Is that the final tally on that?
Approximately, but the Dr. High would be able to describe that better.
Understood. And we've described how the injuries to Mr. Pearson were characterized by witnesses, correct?
Yes, sir.
Slowly and several times slicing across the front of his throat.
Yes, sir.
In any event, when Mr. Pearson gets transported to the hospital, UF Shands, they collect all of his property in the course of the transport, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, and that property was ultimately turned over to you or one of your colleagues, was it not?
Yes, sir.
Was there a phone there?
No, sir.
All right. So you didn't recover his phone from the scene, his vehicle, and it wasn't taken with him via transport?
No, sir.
Ultimately, the phone was collected, however. Was it not?
Yes, sir, it was.
A search warrant was issued for Mr. Pearson to acquire his phone as well as a computer, correct?
Yes, sir, it was.
Okay. And do you know how or when and where the phone was obtained, Mr. Pearson?
Detective Kapelka, I believe, went and obtained the cell phone and the computer from their residence in Ponte Vedra.
Okay. When Detective Kapelka went to the residence with the warrant, Mr. Pearson's father surrendered those items pursuant to the warrant, correct?
He did.
Okay. And are you aware of any conversation that may have taken place between Detective Kapelka and Mr. Pearson's father, Dan Pearson?
No, sir, not without reviewing his supplement.
Okay. I have it if we need to, but let me try to cut to the chase.
Sir.
Were you made aware that Mr. Pearson, Dan Pearson, Mr. Pearson's father, had relayed to Detective Kapelka that he had taken the phone from him several days prior?
Yes, sir, I was aware of that.
So it would appear at the time of these crimes that apparently for several days prior, Mr. Pearson did not have any ability to, for lack of a better term, track the movements of Ms. Schemitz.
Yes, sir, based on the phones that the parents had
Okay. And those are the only phones of which we're aware?
that were aware, yes, sir.
Now, and you had mentioned that there was a partial download of Mr. Pearson's phone, so you couldn't get a complete recovery.
Yes, sir.
In that partial download, there was no evidence of him tracking her on June 3rd, 2023, correct?
Yes, sir. There was not.
And you said you haven't been able to access the phone because there was, you didn't have the password.
Yes, sir.
Passcode.
Yes, sir.
Was a request ever made to Mr. Pearson for the passcode?
Don't believe there was one directly made to Mr. Pearson.
Or anyone else on his behalf?
Not that I'm aware of, no, sir.
Was a motion to compel passcode ever filed to try to penetrate the phone and get the access to its contents?
No, sir.
So you had the phone and there was potential legal mechanisms to gain access, those just weren't taken.
Yes, sir.
In addition to Mr. Pearson attempting to take his own life on June 3rd, 2023, you were made aware of, and how were you made aware of his prior attempt at suicide by hanging himself?
Through Madison and Jacqueline.
They were aware of that
Yeah.
circumstance?
Yes, sir, they were.
Okay. Law enforcement make any effort to gain the records of his hospitalization or attempted suicide on that prior occasion?
No, sir, we did not.
If I may have one moment here. Detective Hollis,
Yes, sir.
when we were reviewing that TikTok, I understand that was May 29, 2023,
Yes, sir.
6 days or so prior than the incident.
Yes, sir.
It was a comment, and I'm old, I'm not familiar with TikTok, so if I'm using the wrong vernacular, please set me straight.
Yes, sir.
But it was, the comment was appended to a video, was it not?
Yes.
Did you review the video that the comment was appended to?
No, sir.
Okay, so you don't know what the subject matter of that video was?
No, sir. Due to us not pursuing any threats or harassment charges, there was no follow-up done with the TikTok comment.
Not even to put it in context in what?
No, sir. Just based on what Madison had given us and explained to us and what we reviewed.
Very good. Detective Hoss, I don't believe I have anything further.
Yes, sir.
Redirect.
No, Your Honor.
All right, this witness be excused.
She may.
Thank you, ma'am. You are free to go.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
State, you may call your next witness.